Hello students, I welcome you all to my English class. I think all of you are hale and hearty. So in my English classes, in my last two classes, we discussed the poem Keeping Quiet. And I think the poem is clear to all of you. And in today's class, I'm going to discuss the questions from the poem. Okay, so let us come to the questions. First of all, let us discuss the comprehension type questions from the poem. So first of all, for the first comprehension, you have to quote from line number 1 to last line of the second stanza. That is, now we will count to 12 up to and not move our arms so much. And this comprehension came in the year 2016 in the ACES final exam. So the questions are, how long does the poet want us to stay still? And the answer is, the poet wants us to stay still for a moment or for a second. Then what does he ask us to keep still and not use any language? Why does he ask us to keep still and not use any language? So here the poet says that the poet asks us to keep still and not use any language to do introspection, so that we can feel togetherness among us. So in this way, you have to write the answer. Then what does the poet mean by not move our arms so much? So here, by this expression, the poet literally says that we should not use our hands in any activity. That means we have to stay still. And then you can write the symbolic meaning also, that on the other hand, arms refers to weapon. And by this remark, the poet wants to say that for a moment, at least, we should not use any weapon to harm others or to engage ourselves in any destructive, harmful activity. Then what should we not do for a second? And the answer is, according to the poet, that for a second we should not speak in any language and we should not move our arms. Then second comprehension, it would be an exotic moment, third stanza of the poem. The entire stanza you have to quote. The first one is name the poet and the poem. Second question is what kind of a moment will it be? And then the answer is very easy. According to the poet, it will be an exotic moment. Then what would be an exotic moment? So you have to write that according to the poet, the exotic moment will be a moment where there will be no rush, there will be no noise of any engine, when we would all feel togetherness. Then third one is what will happen if there is no rush or running of engine. So then you have to write that if there is no rush or running of engine, then according to the poet, we will feel togetherness, we will be able to feel an exotic moment. Then how all of us would feel at that moment. So according to the poet, at that moment when there is no sound, no rush, at that moment we will be able to feel togetherness among them, will be able to feel a strange, exotic moment. Then how all of us would feel at that moment, already I discussed the answer. Last one is find a word from the passage which mean enticing or thrilling, and the word is exotic. Okay, now let us come to the next comprehension type question, question number 3. So next stanza, stanza number 4 of the poem, fisherman in the cold sea up to look at his hard hands. So here, what do the fishermen do in the cold sea? And the answer is, the fishermen in the cold sea, they harm the whales. Then what has happened to the man gathering salt? So what has happened to the man gathering salt? The hand of the salt gatherer get hard, or the hands of the man gathering salt get hard. Then what should the man gathering salt do? And the answer is, the man gathering salt should look after his hard hands. Then find the words in the passage which mean the biggest of all fishes, and the word is whale, collecting, and the word is gathering, and then those who collect fishes, and the word is fishermen. Then comprehension number 4. Comprehension number 4 is very, very important. While explaining the poem also, I mentioned it that this stanza number 5, that is, those who prepare green ware after in shade doing nothing. That stanza is very, very important for comprehension. So this comprehension came in the year 2013, 15 and 17 in the ACES final examination. So here the questions are, what are the different kinds of wars mentioned in the poem? So the different kinds of wars mentioned in the poem are green war, war with gas, war with fire. Then what does green war mean? This one came in 2013 and the answer is green war refers to war against nature. Then what kind of victory do they achieve? And the answer is in those wars they will achieve a victory where there will be no survivor. Then what should the warmongers do? And you have to write that the warmongers should they should do introspection, and they should adopt a new approach and work about the other human being like brothers in the shade doing nothing. So then who are the brothers mentioned in the poem? And the answer is the fellow human beings are the brothers mentioned in the poem. And find the words in the passage which mean those left alive. And the word is survivor and win. And win is victory. Okay, it's very simple, I think. Then next comprehension number 5. It is what I want should not be confused up to entertaining ourselves with death. This one came in 2014. Here, what does the poet not want to be? So the poet here wants that we should not be confused that he is advocating total inactivity or death. Then what does the poet mean by I want no track with death? So here the poet wants to convey the idea that he doesn't want to associate his idea of remaining still and silent to do introspection with death or total inactivity. What is sadness that the poet refers to? So the poet here, by sadness, the poet refers to the sadness of never understanding ourselves. Then when can a huge silence do us good? So you have to write that when we are unable to remain single-minded, at that time a huge silence can help us. Okay, so this is the answer. Then find the word in the passage which mean associate with, and the word is track with, and then next word is disturb, and a word is answer is interrupt. Okay, then last comprehension, last 5 lines of the poem. Perhaps the art can please us up to and keep and you keep quiet and I will go. This one came in 2018. Then what can art teach us? For 2 marks you have to write the answer. So you have to write that according to the poet, the art can teach us a valuable lesson about the importance of introspection. Here the poet says that in the winter season the earth appears dead and dry because there is lifelessness and hopelessness in the entire nature. But it doesn't mean that earth is dead. Okay, because that silence, that dead atmosphere of the earth is followed in the winter season is followed by the spring season, which is full of joy and happiness, and the winter makes the earth even more beautiful. Similarly, at the time of doing introspection, if as the person remains still and silent, it appeared that the person is dead. But in reality, that is not dead, because that introspection, that silence, that stillness is followed by rejuvenation, is followed by enjoyment, is followed by happiness, because introspection will be followed by happiness, as winter is followed by the beautiful season of spring. So in this way, the art can teach us a valuable lesson about the significance of introspection. Then why does the poet count to 12? Okay, so here no need to explain the significance of counting up to 12. So just you have to write that the poet counts up to 12 so that we can start doing introspection. Then what will keeping quiet help us achieve? And the answer is keeping quiet help us achieve a togetherness among us, and it will give us rejuvenation or happiness. For 1 mark, that is enough. So keeping quiet will help us achieve a togetherness, a unity in the society, and it will bring rejuvenation to our lives. Okay, so these are the comprehension type questions from the poem. Now let us come to the 2 marks questions from the poem. Okay, so these are the 2 marks questions that came earlier in the examination, as well as I have given you some extra questions here. So question number 1 is, what will counting up to 12 and keeping still help us achieve? So here for 2 marks you have to write. So you have to write that counting up to 12 and keeping still will help us achieve a togetherness, and it will give us an exotic moment, okay, where we will feel togetherness among us. On the other hand, if we remain still after counting up to 12, then we'll stop our harmful activities towards nature. The poor people will get the opportunity to look after themselves, and most importantly, the warmongers will change their attitude. They will realize the futility, the meaninglessness of war. They will adopt an anti-violent attitude and try to develop brotherhood among the society. On the other hand, counting up to 12 and keeping still will also help us. If we are unable to remain single-minded, then to regain our attention, to regain our concentration, it will help us, and also it will help us in preventing the sadness of not understanding ourselves to come to our mind. So these are the things that you have to write in brief. Let me repeat the answer, that counting up to 12 and keeping still to do introspection can many benefits to us. First of all, it can provide us an exotic moment where there will be no rush, no running of engine, and we will feel a sudden strange moment of togetherness. Then it will help us in stopping our atrocious, our harmful activities against nature. Then the poor people will get the opportunity to look after themselves, and most importantly, the warmongers, they will realize the meaninglessness of war, and then they will adopt an anti-violent attitude, and with that anti-violent attitude, they will try to develop brotherhood in the society. Moreover, counting up to 12 and keeping still will help us in regaining our concentration. If we are unable to remain single-minded on a particular thing, at that time, a huge silence or introspection can help us. On the other hand, introspection can prevent the sadness of never understanding ourselves to come to our mind. So in this way, counting up to 12 and keeping quiet will help us in many ways. Then next is, what is the sadness that the poet refers to in the poem Keeping Quiet? This one came in 13, 14, 15. So 3 consecutive year this question came. So here you have to write that the sadness that the poet refers to in the poem Keeping Quiet is that the sadness of never understanding ourselves. The poet says that sometimes we are unable to remain single-minded. We are unable to remain focused on a particular thing. And as a result of that, sadness comes to our mind. And sometimes we become so depressed that we even threaten ourselves with death. But the poet provides a solution also, that at that moment, a huge silence. That means at that moment, if we remain silent and do introspection, it will prevent such type of negative thought, such type of sadness to come to our mind. Then what is considered to be an exotic moment? 16 and 18, this one came. So according to the poet, if we uh, remain still for a moment, if we don't speak in any language, if we don't move our arms so much, at that moment we will get an exotic moment, because at that moment there will be no rush, there will be no noise of engine, and we will feel a sudden or a strange moment of togetherness, and that will be an exotic moment. Then what does counting to 12 signify? This one came in 2017. So I explained earlier the answer that counting up to 12 may signify many things. First of all, by counting up to 12, the poet may be referring to the 12-hour mark of the clock, which indicate the time, or which represent the time of the entire day. And through this, the poet wants to convey the idea that in the entire day we have to find out a moment to do introspection. Again, counting up to 12 may refer to the 12 months of the year. And through this, the poet wants to convey the idea that in the entire year, we have to find out a moment to do introspection. Then counting up to 12 may also refer to 12 o'clock, because at 12 o'clock all the three hands of the clock meet one another. Similarly, the poet believes that if we do introspection, there will be togetherness, there will be unity in the society. So these are the significances of counting up to 12. Then why quietness would be an exotic moment for the speaker? This one came in 2019. So you have to write that according to the poet, quietness would be an exotic moment, because at that moment there will be no rush, there will be no noise of engine, and so we will be able to feel a sudden, a strange togetherness. That togetherness we have not witnessed earlier. So this togetherness, feeling of togetherness, would be an exotic moment for us. Then what is Neruda's opinion about different kinds of war? So here you have to write that in the poem Neruda says that there are different kinds of war, like green war, that is war against environment or nature, then war with gas, war with fire. And Neruda says that war is futile, war is meaningless, because in those wars there will be no survivor to celebrate the victory. The next question is, what was the real name of Pablo Neruda? When did he receive the Nobel Prize for Literature? And the answer is very simple. You will get the answer in the about the poet part. Pablo Neruda's real name was Neftali Ricardo Reyes Basualto, and he received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. The next is, what does the poet ask the fisherman and the man gathering salt to do? So here you have to write that he asks the fishermen and men gathering salt to do introspection, because if they do introspection, the fishermen first of all will not harm the whales, they will not go to the sea and harm the whales, and on the other hand, the salt gatherers will get the time and opportunity to look after their hard hands. Then what, according to Neruda, important lesson can the art teach us? So already I explained the answer as one comprehension type question. Then how can there be life under apparent stillness, and how does the poet prove it? And the answer is again the same thing. You have to write that according to the poet there can be life under apparent stillness, and the poet proves it by giving the example of the art. In the winter season the art appears lifeless because the trees appear naked. Then the birds are not there to fill the environment with their melodious, fill the environment with joy with their melodious song. And there is, in the whole art, there is lifelessness. But there is still life under that stillness, because after the winter season, spring season comes. And the spring season fills or vibrates the whole atmosphere with joy, with happiness, with life. So that is why the poet, by giving the example of art, proves that there is life under apparent stillness. So these are the questions from the poem. So I think the answers to these questions are clear to all of you. But still, again, I am repeating that if you have any doubt regarding these questions, contact me. Okay, I shall definitely clear all your doubts. So with this, I want to conclude today's class. So thank you and have a wonderful day.